That's not... Oh, it's moving. It's moving
It dipped
sideways.
under the clouds there. Did you see it?
Aye, and another one just...
Can't tell where it's coming from.
It's too low. That
And
shadow's
shadows
all
on.
wrong.
Listen
It
to that
changes
sound.
every
It's still...
time.
Underwater UFOs.
Tracking. Got it. Going under. No flash. Sliding in. Copy. Still happening. Look at that trail. It's moving. Unusual. Thermal lock on an unidentified craft hovering 029 just above the surface. It's phasing in and out. You're saying it's cloaking? Tracking. Got it. Going under. No splash. It's just sliding in. Copy. Still happening. Look at that trail. It's moving. That's visual.
If you're watching this video right now, you are extremely lucky because on March the 3rd, the moon is going to be turning blood red for over an hour and over 6 billion people on Earth are going to be able to see it. Okay, so this is insane. For anybody that wants to make sure they don't forget, on March the 3rd of this year, 2026, we're getting a total lunar eclipse. And if you don't know what that means that the Earth is going to pass directly between the sun and the moon. And for about 58 minutes, the entire moon is going to glow in a deep blood red color. If you want to make sure that you do not forget about this, you need to make sure you go ahead and add me now because I'm going to remind you closer to when it's happening. I'll let you know a week in advance and the day before. Just obviously make sure you add me so you don't miss those videos. This total lunar eclipse is not going to be just visible in a random spot. We're talking about North America, South America, Asia, Australia, and the Pacific. This is nearly 6 billion people that are at least going to be able to see a part of it, while 2.5 billion people are going to be able to watch it in its full totality phase. This is actually going to be the last total lunar eclipse that we're going to get anywhere on Earth until New Year's Eve of 2028. That is almost 3 years without another blood moon, so if you miss this one, you're obviously going to be waiting a while. Obviously, if you want to make sure you don't forget it, I always remind you guys about these events, so make sure you go ahead and add me now before you forget, because it's going to be coming and I will update you.
Engineers visiting the Serapeum say the tool marks don't match anything known from the ancient world. Cuts curve smoothly through hard stone, like something machined. Were these us overachieving stonemasons? Or did they know something we don't?
Did you know that Oxford University is older than the Aztec Empire? The University of Oxford was already teaching students around the year 1096. The Aztec Empire wouldn't rise for another 300 years. That should completely reset how you think about history. Because when Oxford began teaching medicine, there were no microscopes, no understanding of bacteria, no concept of germs. Doctors believed disease came from bad air, a theory called miasma. And yet, this was considered the highest level of knowledge available. Oxford existed centuries before calculus, before modern physics, before chemistry as we know it. It was already old before Leonardo da Vinci began dissecting bodies to understand human anatomy. For hundreds of years, no one even knew dinosaurs existed, until an Oxford professor helped identify them. Oxford was also teaching 400 years before the West even knew the Americas existed. Imagine being a student there when that discovery happened. Geography rewritten overnight, maps redrawn, entire worldviews collapsing. And here's the part that really messes with your head. We are now as far removed from Oxford's founding as Oxford's founding was from the time of Jesus. That means something important. The knowledge taught at Oxford in 1096 felt just as solid and unquestionable as what we're taught today, and much of it was wrong, which raises a quiet but uncomfortable question. What do we believe right now that future generations will look back on and ask, how did they not know?
Now, if the Sphinx is older than 9,000 years, it would point to a long-lost civilization capable of carving massive stone monuments before the rise of dynastic Egypt, which began around 3,100 years BC, so approximately 5,000 years ago. This idea ties into other ancient sites like Göbekli Tepe in Turkey, which I discussed in a previous video. Göbekli Tepe is a megalithic complex that dates to around 9,500 years BC, or approximately 11,500 years ago, showing what a complex society could be capable of far earlier than once believed possible. So why isn't this mainstream? Why do we not hear more about this in schools, colleges, and universities? Why are people not talking more about this? Why are people in school and universities not being taught about alternative theories about the possible age of the Sphinx?
Creep on in, on in, on in, on in.
Dagda, Odin and Zeus. You can't tell me that these guys aren't either the same guy or related. They've got to be surely like cousins at the very least, if they're not the same person. And I still think they're extraterrestrials. I don't think these guys came from Atlantis. They're all head honchos in charge of their kingdom. They're all described in slightly varying different ways as being in charge of the same things, basically. And they've all led their armies to victory over a common enemy. And they've all got their queens by their sides.
In 1977, scientists recorded the WOW signal, a 72-second radio burst so precise it looked artificial. Officially, it was never repeated. Unofficially, it was repeated every year, just never on public equipment. A decommissioned radio engineer named Malcolm Reyes claimed that the signal didn't come from space. It came from Earth specifically, 3 minutes into the future. Reyes worked on a Cold War listening station that monitored impossible frequencies, bands that technically shouldn't carry intelligible data. In 1983, during a routine calibration, his team picked up a signal that matched the WOW signal's structure exactly. Except this one contained audio. It was human voices, panicked, overlapping, familiar. When they isolated the track, Reyes recognized his own voice. Older, hoarse, saying a sentence he had never spoken. "If you can hear this, we didn't stop it." 3 minutes later, every monitor in the room went dead. Power failure, backup generators failed. The blackout lasted exactly 180 seconds. When systems rebooted, the signal was gone.
Do you know Erica Kirk? People are theorizing that there was an Erica Kirk before her.
What, like a clone?
She looks exactly like this other woman named Erica Kirk back in 1934. And
No.
her positioning is what's really weird.
Okay.
Because she's also connected to a very popular Republican, just like Charlie Kirk.
No.
People are saying it might be the same person.
Oh my
into-
gosh,
Yeah,
this-
it literally looks like the same person, right? This is what's really weird.
Yeah.
They used to call this Erica Kirk in 1934 Madame X.
Okay.
The reason they called her Madam X was because she appeared out of nowhere and she became very important.
Yeah.
Very similar to what happened with Erica Kirk.
I've never heard.
She just appeared and she's very important. Almost as if she was
planted.
played. She looks dead as just
No,
like
this is
her.
crazy. This is
That's
crazy.
why it's so weird. Back in the day, it was a political wife.
I feel like you can do this with a lot of people though, because there's been, if you search up like other celebrities, Taylor Swift, there would be one that in the 1900s that look exactly like her.
One of the things I find most striking is the presence of Antarctica on ancient maps, because we didn't discover it until 1820, and yet it's on maps drawn in the 1500s with great detail. The so-called Pinkerton world map, it just shows a hole where Antarctica is. Because it was an honest map. Nobody had found it by then. But if you go back to, for example, the Wolsey-Wooler world map drawn in 1530 or thereabouts, you find Antarctica is present. Orontius Phineus. Go for Orontius. Oronteus. Phineus. The Orontius Phineus map. That map shows Antarctica exactly where it should be. And it shows it, there we go, right-hand side. There's Antarctica at the tip of South America, just south of South Africa.
And what did they call it back then?
Well, they call it the Southern Land. And it's larger than it is today, but it was larger than it is today during the Ice Age. Antarctica was a much bigger. Now, what the fuck is it doing on a map drawn in the 1500s, which we know was based on older source maps when nobody knew it existed in the 1500s? To me, the obvious answer is we are dealing with the fingerprints of a lost civilization.
What if I told you that I am holding right here the petrified remains, not of a giant, of a titan, which is like a giant. Like this massive oak tree behind me would be like the little micro step cousin of the giant titans, okay? And you may be thinking, and I thought that too, I'm like, who the hell thinks that pink salt is a petrified giant? Here's the weird part. And here's the new part that I figured out since yesterday's video. If you look at a pink salt mine, which I'll put some pictures here, it does look like muscle tissue. However, many things look like many other things. I mean, here's a picture of a petrified snake, or it's just rocks that are in a funny shape. You know what I mean? But here's the weird part. If there was a giant flood, a great flood, and it had to rain for 40 days and 40 nights just to be able, he made it rain 40 days, 40 nights just to be able to submerge them because they were so tall, so gigantic, like in Jack and the Beanstalk, like in every frickin' fairy tale we read growing up. Here's the weird part. Pink salt. What's it called? Himalayan pink salt. Where would the giants go to escape a flood? They'd climb a hill, they'd climb a mountain. Where do they find pink salt? In a mountain. What kind of pink salt is it? Himalayan. Himalayan. Is that why they call it Himalayan pink salt? Because it's the Himalayan mountains is a whole bunch of remnants of petrified giants who fled to the hills, which then made it a mountain when they petrified on top of it. And that's how we got pink salt. Now, of course, pink salt has many benefits, this, that, and the other. But the interesting part is that we still are told that that's all just a fairy tale. But the question you have to literally cranially discuss and think about yourself, why would so many ancient cultures talk about giants as like a joke fairy tale? I mean, I'm way past. Were there maybe giants? Like, I'm kind of like, dude, how tall were they? How big were they? What else about them? That's where I'm at. And why were they so rude? That's the problem. That's why he flooded the earth, because they were cannibalistic. They were mean. They were like enslaving people. They were apparently well, Nephilim. We'll talk about it. And there's remnants of them to this day. Ask someone who served in the U.S. Army in 2006 to 2007. I think that's the year that they found the Afghan giant. Which of course is just a theory. It's not confirmed, but it's very interesting.
If I want to believe that this is petrified wood, why am I not allowed to do that? They're so adamant that this is how it is. You're living on a ball, you're flying through space, don't think and just believe what we're telling you. But when we look at the natural world, we're seeing that things don't line up, things don't correlate. And what makes more sense is the biblical story. The Book of Enoch, for example, there were giants on the earth in those days. There were trees that touched the heavens. And we can see evidence of this all across the earth. So if you want to choose that as your reality, who's to say that you can't? Just because these people over here have programmed you to believe in their reality, in their belief system, in what they want you to think. So don't worry about what people think about you. We're being presented with information that makes absolutely no sense. And when we do try to figure it out for ourselves, we get called dumb.
We were never allowed to go and see. Never. What was really found? Again, all off limits to all of us. All of the excavation projects are always off limits to the public. This needs to be changed. So it's off limits to all of us, the excavation project. So why don't we just go now, since they're all done excavating in the 1970s? Why don't we all just go to Turkey? Check this place out today. This site was so incredible and completely blew mainstream story hour right out of the water. Would you like to know just how scared this finding really made them? They knew that Norsen Tepe would expose that the mainstream history is a lie and that there was an advanced civilization before us. Because after excavating the site, removing all of the valuable items and texts, they needed to hide this structure because it didn't fit in. And how would you do this? How would you hide it forever? The thing is massive, a 40-layer structure. How would you hide it forever? You would fill the entire area up with water. And that is exactly what happened after 1974. They submerged the entire location by breaking the Caban Dam and making it impossible for anyone to even see it today, creating an artificial lake where Norsen Tepe today currently sits submerged, 98 to 131 feet at the bottom of the water. Finding this in the 1960s, beginning excavation in 1968, and ending it in 1974, and then opening the dam up that exact same year, where the public, all of us, were never allowed to explore it, with all documented research coming from official excavation reports. Not a single independent researcher or historian ever got access to the site. And after the dam was completed, it was permanently off limits to anyone who wanted to investigate further. And this gets crazy. They constructed this dam between 1966 and completed it in 1974. What are the odds that they find this and then construct a dam to submerge the site 130 feet into the water? What are the odds of that? At this point, alarms have got to be going off. Never allowing anybody to ever see the site. And even today, it is inaccessible for public visitation. You aren't even allowed to go diving in there just to go look at it. Are you still on the fence? Do you still think that you're being told the truth about our past? Norsen Tepe is completely off limits for diving or public exploration. With government restrictions, the area is managed by Turkey's state hydraulic works, and the dam's reservoir is restricted, all for safety, of course. And even if you were allowed to go diving in there, over decades, layers of silt and sediment have likely buried much of the site. We have been totally fooled for so long.
UFOs around nuclear power plants and sensitive military installations, right? There is a report that has just been released by the Enigma Labs app, and the report of 1,800 unidentified aerial sightings reported within a 25-mile radius of 53 major US nuclear power plants, and a further 1,000 sightings near US military installations associated with nuclear weapons or related tech. Wherever this kind of nuclear power is being tested on, or kind of research is being done, UFOs are not too far away in close proximity, which is a massive thing that I've been talking about on this channel quite a lot, the entirety of this channel being around. Now, this made me remember about Beatrice Villarreal's transients research paper, which is peer-reviewed, which was about before the human space age ever began, before we sent the first satellites into space, which was 1957. Before that, there was UFOs which were captured on photographic plates, which appeared around nuclear tests and things of that nature, right? So right here, a transient study, they found a 68% increase of UFOs and transients appearing above Earth's atmosphere a day after a nuclear test. And additional increase in transients whenever UFO sightings were reported on. And this is peer-reviewed, and this just shows that there was UFO activity happening in our skies before we even had anything up there, right? Again, nuclear connection to do with activity with UFOs and nuclear explosions and things of that nature, right? So there's a big connection there. Now, when it comes to the humans testing out nuclear capabilities, ever since we have let off the first atomic bomb, again, massive UFO increase has taken place. Now, information through the grapevine and even up in high government places suggested that when we are testing nuclear capabilities, not only is the energy very powerful on our physical plane that we exist on, but it also ripples through space-time. So what that means is that the energy being emitted by the nuclear blast is almost like kicking a hornet's nest up, down, left, right, different dimensions, and it affects so many different things that exist beyond our physical plane. So all these different energies and entities are coming through to our physical plane, wondering why us, basically on a technological level, we are babies. Why do we have nuclear capabilities and just allowed to kind of blow things up and set it off willy-nilly? So, and there's a lot of reports where when nuclear situations were going to take place, missile silos, technology, things of that nature have been shut down due to presences of UFO activity, almost like a countermeasure to stop us from destroying ourselves. So, Beech's Villarreal's research paper has already suggested that this is taking place to do with nuclear activity, and that is peer-reviewed. She's been working hard at it. It's happening.
Archaeologists have discovered a huge ancient city hidden underground in Mexico, which may give a better understanding of the Maya civilization.
Deep in the jungles of Central America, something untouched has finally been revealed. Archaeologists have opened a Mayan tomb that had not been disturbed for centuries.
There's a vault there that was looted. And that was a tomb, you think? Oh, yes.
What they found inside is surprising experts and challenging everything they thought they knew. The discovery raises questions about ancient power, ritual, and the choices the Maya made for their dead. The Maya and the secrets of their dead. Long before outsiders reached the forests of Central America, the Maya had already built one of the most advanced civilizations in the ancient world. They planned cities with stone precision, tracked time with detailed calendars, and recorded events with a written system that preserved power, belief, and history. According to historians, this was not a loose society held together by force. It was a tightly ordered world, shaped by belief, ritual, and authority. At the center of Maya life stood the ruler. He was not seen as an ordinary leader. Reports from inscriptions and carvings show that Maya kings were believed to stand between humans and the gods. When disasters struck or harvests failed, it was believed the ruler was responsible for restoring balance. This belief gave rulers enormous power, but it also placed heavy expectations on them. Their actions were believed to affect the entire world around them. Death, in Maya belief, did not end that responsibility. Many scholars explain that death was seen as a change of state, not a disappearance. According to inscriptions, rulers were expected to continue their role beyond physical life. This belief shaped how the Maya treated burial. A tomb was not just a place to place a body, it was a controlled space where transformation was believed to occur. This is why Maya tombs were built with such care. They were often placed beneath temples or important ceremonial structures. Archaeologists report that these locations were chosen on purpose. Temples represented sacred authority, and placing a tomb beneath one linked the ruler permanently to power and ritual. The tomb became part of the living city, not separate from it. Inside these tombs, nothing was random. Every object had meaning. Shells were linked to water and rebirth. Carved bones often carried messages or images meant for the afterlife. According to researchers, these items were not gifts for comfort. They were tools meant to guide the ruler through transformation. Because of this belief system, disturbing a tomb was not taken lightly. Some local traditions report that opening a royal burial was believed to disrupt cosmic order. It was thought to invite illness, drought, or conflict. Whether or not these fears were based on real events, they shaped behavior for centuries. Tombs were sealed, hidden, and protected with extreme care. This also explains why Maya tombs were rarely meant to be found again. Unlike modern graves, they were not designed for visits. Once sealed, they became part of the sacred structure above them. According to archaeological studies, many tomb entrances were deliberately erased or concealed to prevent return. Over time, however, the Maya civilization declined. Cities were abandoned, rituals stopped, and knowledge of sacred spaces faded. Without active protection, tombs became vulnerable. What had once been feared became tempting. Precious materials drew looters, and sacred meaning was slowly replaced by greed. Because Maya tombs carried such power, they quickly became targets once the civilization declined. Why finding an untouched Maya tomb is almost impossible. Long after the Maya civilization began to decline, their cities were slowly abandoned. According to archaeologists, many settlements were empty centuries before modern researchers arrived. Temples fell into ruin. Roads became overgrown with jungle. Stone platforms were swallowed by vegetation. When explorers first arrived, they were stepping into a landscape that had been left alone for hundreds of years, but it was far from untouched. Tombs, especially those of elite rulers or priests, did not remain hidden for long. Reports suggest that looters often discovered these sites centuries ago. Treasure hunters were drawn by the lure of precious materials. According to unverified accounts, jade, gold, and shells were considered priceless. Once a tomb was known, it became a target, and few remained sealed. Even the richest burials could be opened and emptied multiple times over generations. Environmental forces added another layer of risk. Heavy rains, shifting soil, and erosion sometimes exposed tomb entrances. Some archaeologists report that they have found entire chambers partially revealed due to collapsed roofs or washed-out tunnels. This natural exposure made it easy for looters to find and disturb sites that had been carefully concealed by the Maya. Colonial history made the problem worse. When European settlers moved through the region, many protective structures were destroyed. Temples were looted for building material. Sacred spaces were cleared without understanding their original purpose. According to local historians, this destruction removed much of the physical evidence that could have protected the tombs. By the time modern archaeologists arrived, most tombs had already been disturbed. Excavators often find empty chambers or spaces that were ransacked long ago. According to reports from field teams, it is extremely rare to find a tomb in pristine condition. Every intact site becomes a goldmine of information precisely because it has survived centuries of human interference and environmental decay. An untouched tomb is more than just rare. According to experts, it suggests deliberate concealment and exceptional protection. Some believe the Maya took extreme measures to hide their rulers. Tombs may have been buried under false floors, hidden beneath layers of rubble, or placed in areas that were difficult to reach. Local accounts also report that some tombs were sealed with warnings or symbols meant to deter intruders, blending fear and respect. The survival of such a tomb requires a combination of careful planning, protective engineering, and a bit of luck. According to researchers, the chances of a burial remaining intact for over 1,000 years are slim. Every discovery of this kind is not just a historical find. It is a rare window into a civilization that worked hard to control who could access its secrets. For this tomb to survive intact, it would have needed to be hidden far beyond the reach of chance or curiosity. The Maya were not careless in death. Every measure of protection mattered, and only a combination of secrecy, traps, and knowledge of the land could ensure that a tomb like this remained undiscovered until modern times.
So you're telling me you believe the Megalodon is not extinct and actually still out there?
Brother, I don't just believe. I know. 11 years ago, I was a part of a classified NASA operation called Project Deep Dive. We were researching deep-sea marine biology. And when I say deep sea, I mean really deep. Like most of our research expeditions, we're over 30,000 feet under the ocean's surface. When you're that deep in the ocean, you start to realize how little we know about this abyss we call the ocean. We might as well have been in deep space. That's what it feels like when you're down there. Like we were discovering new species every day. So one day we were on a routine field expedition when I see something strange on my radar. It was picking up a reading of a contact that was over 200 feet long and was moving at like 2 miles per hour. I'm thinking to myself, like, this must be a glitch. I radio the other submarine. We always did research in pairs, so he was close by. I asked him, like, hey, are you seeing this? Without asking me to clarify, he just says, yeah, I'm seeing it. At this point, I don't know what to think. Like the biggest sea creature we have ever discovered, the Antarctic blue whale, which is also the biggest animal on the planet, or so we thought, is 98 feet long. The creature in this reading was over double that. Like, I look at the radar and notice the contact is moving towards us, and at an alarming speed. My gut drops like I come down from the clouds and realize, holy crap, a 200-something foot undiscovered, probably carnivorous creature is coming directly towards us. I start to freak out a little. I hear my radio go off. It's the captain of the other vessel. He says, "Are you seeing this?" You can just hear the panic in my voice. I tell him, "Initiate resurfacing systems now." He says, "But sir, don't you want to see what this thing is?" I tell him that's an order. We're going to the surface now. End of discussion. Like, we are beyond unprepared to encounter whatever this thing is. There's one problem. We can't just shoot right back up to the surface. We would die from decompression sickness. We can only ascend at a maximum rate of 60 feet per minute. So as we are ascending, we are just watching this massive blip on the radar get closer and closer. I'm monitoring the cameras on both our ships. I don't see anything. Which, even with our state-of-the-art equipment, it's hard to see much of anything out there. I look at the monitor for the rear cameras of the vessel, and I see it. Swam right past our ship. The vessel is shaking by the sheer vibration of this massive creature. I'm as terrified as I am astonished. It was magnificent. Over 200 feet of cartilaginous. As terrifying as it was beautiful. It started swimming towards Voyager 2. I felt the sub shake massively. As it left, it was definitely picking up speed. I could tell there was an aggressive aura to its swimming. It was no longer curious. It was angry. I hear screams coming from the radio and the sound of shattering metal, and then nothing. Silence. It's the sound of that silence that still haunts me to this day.
Oh my God.
I tried to radio them for hours as I resurfaced. Nothing. Shortly after this, Project Deep Dive was shut down and all of our discoveries were buried.
The Bob Lazar story, which I'm sure you're aware of.
His story is, I'm not too familiar with it, right?
It's the nuttiest story of all time. They denied that he ever worked at Los Alamos, but then they found him on an employee log. And not only that, he knew the outline of the place. He knew the security people. George Knapp took him on a tour of it, and he knew everybody. He knew the people that worked there. He knew how to get around. Like, he clearly worked there. So that's interesting that they tried to deny that he ever worked there. And then from there, he gets this job where he is flown out to the desert to Area 51 Site 4. And this is allegedly, right? During this time, he can't even tell his wife what he's doing. So his wife thinks he's going having affairs. He's got to leave and fly away at 11 p.m. at night. Right, but you can't tell me where you're going? You want to work? Right.
Yeah, you're working late again?
The wife starts having an affair. And because of his
This
clearance...
almost sounds like a movie, right?
It does sound like a movie, which is one of the beautiful things about reality. Is that reality seems so fake that sometimes actual true stories are bizarrely fictional. So his wife starts having an affair. Because of his clearance, he cannot be working on these things if he could be under extreme emotional duress. So they fire him. They tell him he can't. They don't give him any explanation. They don't tell him his wife's cheating on him. He starts taking people out to the desert, explaining to them, you have to see what we're working on. They fly this thing on certain nights, and they do these test flights around the base. It's nuts. So he takes these people into this area. They see it. They get arrested. When he gets arrested, he gets caught there. He explains what he was doing. He says, okay, I've got to go public or they're going to kill me. So he goes public with George Knapp. Initially, they hide his face, and then he says, you know what, fuck that. Let's just film me. Let me tell you everything. He goes over the diagram of this device, and he calls it the sport model, and it looks like that. That thing that we have right there.
It's almost like a hubcap, right? But
exactly.
It's
That's a copy of it.
Okay.
In the middle of that thing is some sort of a generator that he said works on this unknown element, this element 115. And essentially the way he describes it traveling, and again, this is in the 1980s, the way he describes it traveling is exactly the way you describe that sort of warp drive, changing space and time around it. And that you would point that thing where you wanted to go, and it would just...
Eight conspiracy theories that were actually true. The last one will blow your mind. Number 1, MK Ultra was called a conspiracy theory until declassified documents proved the CIA experimented on Americans with LSD mind control and torture for decades. Number 2, the government denied Area 51 existed and called it a conspiracy until 2013, when they finally admitted the base is real and has been operational since the 1950s. Number 3, people claimed the NSA was spying on all Americans, and it was dismissed as paranoia until Edward Snowden leaked proof they monitor everyone's communications without warrants. Number 4, the Tuskegee syphilis experiment was denied for years, until the government admitted they infected and studied black men with syphilis for 40 years, without treatment or consent. Number 5, Operation Northwoods was a conspiracy theory, until declassified files proved the military planned to stage terrorist attacks on Americans and blame Cuba to justify invasion. Number 6, tobacco companies were accused of hiding cancer research, and they denied it for decades, until internal documents proved they knew cigarettes killed people and covered it up. Number 7, the government denied spraying radiation on American cities until they admitted Project Shad exposed military personnel and civilians to biological and chemical weapons in secret tests. Before I say the last one, make sure to hit that follow button to support the channel. Number 8, COINTELPRO was called Paranoid Conspiracy until files revealed the FBI illegally surveilled, assassinated, and sabotaged civil rights leaders, including Martin Luther King Jr. for years.